family, to our show. So, why don't we begin by first having you introduce yourselves on the program?
LaNada Jack. I'm a member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes of Idaho, and um, I'm currently writing my book to make sure that we don't lose the history. I haven't seen anything written or haven't seen many books written about the history that we've just gone through and what we're still continuing to go through from the Third World Strike to Alcatraz to our current reservations.
No,
My name is Jessica James, and I am the manager of our tribal youth education program at the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. And our biggest projects that we're working for is to get our Shoshone-Bannock tribal history and current projects and let people know about our people and our tribes on a state level within the state of Idaho curriculum.
great.
I'm Clifford James. I'm Jessica's husband. I own a company, a native company, construction company, to design build. And the goal of this company is to get back to the reservations and build self-sustaining houses for the future of generations of all Native Americans. But then to hopefully to have that go on and be a positive light for the rest of the world.
Great. So why don't we first begin by speaking about maybe the context prior to the San Francisco Bay Area in the 1960s. For those folks who may not know much about Native history or the generations that were relocated during the 1950s, for example. So what was that context like during that time, in particular with your life and kind of your life history that brought you to the San Francisco Bay Area?
Well, we had just gone through the genocidal era, post-genocidal era, and the laws that were impacting us in terms of denying us our religion, our culture, our ceremonies, our dances. We were also subjected to having the children taken away and put into government and Christian boarding schools. So I was from the generation that was free. Well, kind of free, but I didn't have to go to those government boarding schools the way that my parents and grandparents were subjected to, which started the cycle of dysfunction to our people from the loss of our culture and our spiritual ways. So in the 50s and the 60s, the government started the assimilation program to relocate us to 6 of the major cities in the United States. And at 18, I was one of those young people who were put into the program to assimilate us. And I went to San Francisco. And being in San Francisco and looking at what was going on in the Bay Area, I could see that there was a lot of action at UC Berkeley and San Francisco State, but I wanted to go to UC Berkeley. And I put my mind to it, and I was a first Native American student at UC Berkeley.
And how was it once you arrived at UC Berkeley? Was this a welcoming environment? Did you just go to school? So can you give more context of what was happening on that campus and what attracted you also to that campus?
Well, I was attracted to the campus because of all the action and young people, and as a young person myself, then I just naturally migrated, and it was, the campus experience was different, but it was good, and I liked it. I was recruited by the Chicano organization to belong to their student group, but then I told them I wasn't Chicana, I was Native, and they said, well, that's good, we're Native too. And so I said, okay. So we became great friends, and they helped me do a recruiting effort to bring in Native American students. So when we had enough Native American students, I mean, not enough, but we had a few, then we went and organized our Native student chapter of Native Americans, and came up right at the time that the Third World Strike at Berkeley was beginning. And we were asked if we wanted to join the Third World Strike, and of course we wanted to join the Third World Strike because we wanted to have our Department of Native American Studies as well.
And what are some of the experiences that you had being in the strike?
Well,
or the challenges, if you will?
Yes, there were some challenges, but mainly I learned that we really needed to work together to get anything done. So as blacks, Chicanos, Asians, and natives, we were able to unify and also to include the associated students and all of the non-native students, and work together to implement our first department, interdisciplinary department of ethnic studies in Third World College. So that's what we wanted to do. We were successful eventually in negotiating that, but not without a struggle. We maintained peaceful means and nonviolence, but we were met with violence, and all of the student leaders were arrested during that time, and some of them really beat up, severely beaten up, like Isidro Macias. And I was pulled out of line by a 300-pound officer by my hair, and I faced suspension for two quarters, but I was eventually able to get through that and back into school, and I graduated with a 3.6.
And that was 1969, March, when Ethnic Studies Department was approved. But later that year, in November, is when the occupation of Alcatraz took place, of which you were one of the founding students who were part of that. Can you speak a little bit about that experience and how this came about?
Well, as Native students in the Bay Area, which we just started in '69 from both San Francisco State and the University of California at Berkeley, we worked together, socialized together, went to powwows together, helped each other. We were a very unified group, and when Alcatraz was going to be sold to the city of San Francisco was going to sell Alcatraz to a multi-billionaire so that he could set up a casino, and we didn't like that because when the prison was vacated, a Sioux landing party, Lakota landing party, went out and claimed the island because under federal surplus property laws and under our treaties, any vacated surplus property will go back to the native people. And to us, it was like another broken treaty. And so we went out and took the island to make our stand, to get the government to recognize the broken treaties and the fact that they never complied with any of the laws that they made. It was all on that side, and we wanted to make sure that they followed through with their legal responsibilities in recognizing our lands and our resources and all the agreements that were made under those treaties.
And what impacted you about that experience, especially looking back now? It's been over 40 years. What do you, I guess, maybe remember the most, or do you take away from having occupied the island for 19 months, correct? What are some of the memories that you have from that experience?
Well, it was a 19-month occupation, but I was able to stay in school. I know that when the sailboats came out on Sunday, I had my son with me, who was 2.5, 3 years old. We would go on out on the docks of Alcatraz and hitchhike, catch a sailboat on Sunday, get back to the Berkeley Marina, and I had an apartment at the University Village that I maintained, and we would go home, get cleaned up, and I would go and make my rounds with my professors and turn in my work and go back to Alcatraz for the rest of the week. And I did a lot of public relations, and I did a lot of traveling as well. I was on several shows. I did public relations, and I think that gave me the biggest impact was learning and knowing that as a Native American, I need to know my history. I need to know what that's all about, and I need to be able to and be ready to speak up whenever necessary, because the rights that were being taken away from us in terms of the lands, the water, and all our resources that were impacting all of us, not only on our reservation, everywhere, and it's just been one continuous struggle.
So bringing it to the present, because I know you were part of Standing Rock, and you're working on your book, which is to some degree looking at this history, but also right now and all the activist work and community work that you've done, including earning your doctorate, right? So can you speak more about the current struggles that you're involved with now or that you're facing, and then perhaps segue into the book that you're writing?
Okay. Well, with Standing Rock, it was just kind of a repeat of history of what happened at Alcatraz, because we were fighting for the recognition of the laws that the government would never support. And even though it was in our treaties and in the federal laws, they would never enforce it. So we never had enforcement of legal responsibilities on their side, which caused us a lot of troubles, and those kind of troubles came into being, like polluted water, lands being taken away. The government, again with Standing Rock, did not recognize the tribe's input and consent for putting a pipeline, an oil pipeline across their land that would endanger the water supply, not only for them, but for everyone down the Missouri River. Just millions of people would be impacted. And they just pushed that aside and just did whatever they wanted. They would not recognize the laws. They would not recognize the treaties. They would not recognize the federal laws. And the government just turned their head as usual. And we've been facing that forever when it comes to the government's responsibility to comply with the law. They would always turn their head or just violate it without any kind of conscience or legal responsibility or anything. They just ignored it continuously, and that was the situation at Standing Rock.
It almost highlights how colonialism still works in the present. Many believe that we're done, that happened a long time ago, but I think the example of Standing Rock highlights this is what colonization looks like right now and how it affects us all.
That's true, and not only that, but it gave everybody else an opportunity to join in that struggle, because the same thing was happening to them worldwide. But it was very unifying in that aspect, and where we could all support each other as well. And it's still going on.
And so your book, you're working on this book. Tell us a little bit about this project and how your life experience relates to this.
Well, it just, since we don't have a history and we're continuously ignored, We had a difficult time getting media. For Alcatraz, it was an international seaport town, so we were able to get some media. But with Standing Rock, they ignored it completely because corporations own the media and they own uh, the politicians apparently. So we couldn't get any kind of support, the support that we needed. But that history of Native people needs to be known. We can't continue to ignore the fact that we went through a genocidal era, the fact that we've been impacted by the laws where they were able to take away all the children from babies on up and put them, institutionalize them in the Christian and government boarding schools and take away our languages, our culture, our spiritual beliefs by making all of that illegal by law. It has to stop. We have to be able to have the right to live and to live in a good environment where laws are recognized, where the injustice doesn't continue to impact us and hurt us, which it has been doing since the very beginning. It hasn't stopped, it hasn't ended. And it's not just our fight, but it's everybody's responsibility. It's going to impact everyone at some point in time when there's no water, when there's no plants and animals, when our earth is destroyed. I mean, that's our responsibility to protect and to maintain for not only ourselves but future generations to come. And it's not happening. We have to do it ourselves, but we can.
And the book is one of the ways that we can contribute to that change.
Right.
Because I already teach about you in my classes, so with the book, then I can actually incorporate that as well to complement, the work that we do in ethnic studies. I mean, I owe my life work to activists like yourselves who have been fighting to create these spaces, and to this day continuing to do this work. Where are you with the book project in terms of stages? How's that process coming along?
Well, I finished the book, but then with things happening, like, because right after I finished, then Standing Rock happened, and there's so many things going on that they can't be ignored. So I'm doing additional sections and editing again. I have to edit because it almost feels like that I changed so fast, that my thinking has changed, and which is to the benefit because I become more open-minded and I'm not so hurt. It gives me a chance to get rid of those intense feelings of sadness and being hurt and angry, and it helps me work through that at the same time that I'm able to write and express and share the history of our people on up to the more contemporary times.
And speaking of contemporary times, and perhaps this is a question addressed to the current needs or the current issues that the young people in particular are facing on reservations and just in general for the Native American population. So can you speak a little bit about what are the issues that are currently, deserve more attention?
Well, like she said, like funding agencies not living up to what they say they're going to give in terms of federal programs to help with career and job readiness. There's laws that say that they're supposed to be funded up to a certain amount, but the funding really never comes through, and so that inhibits the work that we can do on the reservations in terms of getting our people ready for employment, getting our people prepared for employment, and getting there and encouraging their education. I work with the Tribal Youth Education Program for K through 12, and it's been a challenge to get our kids up to par and ready and prepared for the future in terms of education when there is a lack of funding. So right now in the Senate, they're trying to pass a bill so that the Johnson-O'Malley Act the Johnson-O'Malley program can go under the Department of Interior to regulate how it's being ran and everything. But that's on a federal level, and then there's the tribal level of making sure that our kids can receive adequate educational dollars to prepare them for the future, and that's been difficult and challenging on our reservation in particular.
So one of them is like funding that's available. The other one is the educational levels. Any other issues that young people right now on the reservations are facing?
Yeah, there's suicide. The issues of suicide and bullying is huge. It's a big problem that we see in our community is the bullying issue. There's substance abuse issues. There's a lot of social ills that are really plaguing our communities that we need to overcome as a nation, as a people, and I think there's a lot of challenges that we have to work through.
Yeah, maybe then the next question would be about the future then. So can you speak a little bit about the work that you're doing and how we can start envisioning a different kind of horizon to help some of these challenges?
A lot of my work recently has been design, because honestly, sciences make the future look really bleak with water being polluted, groundwater being polluted specifically, and just it doesn't look very good. If you take a look to the future and you try to focus on where you're going to be in 5-10 years, you want to be somewhere positive, but we keep being told that all these negative things keep happening. So really, if you can, for me, what I do is I'll design a system that works good, through practice, and then I'll make a model of it. And I feel for myself, just creating something positive, can give somebody else a better outlook on life, and not try to overlook really the real issues, but help people with positive thinking so they can realize the problems themselves and be the solution to what needs to be done.
Of ethnic studies here at CSU Stanislaus as Indigenous members of their communities. In particular, Dr. LaNada Warjack was involved with the Third World Liberation Front at UC Berkeley in the late 1960s, the occupation of Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay Area, and is currently writing a book, among other projects that she's involved with. So let's welcome Dr. LaNada Warjack and her family to our show. So why don't we begin by first having you introduce yourselves on the program.
LaNada Warjack. I'm a member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes of Idaho, and I'm currently writing my book to make sure that we don't lose the history. I haven't seen anything written or haven't seen many books written about the history that we've just gone through and what we're still continuing to go through from the Third World Strike to Alcatraz to our current reservations.
My name is Jessica James, and I am the manager of our tribal youth education program at the Shoshone-Bannock tribes, and our biggest projects that we're working for is to get our Shoshone-Bannock tribal history and current projects and let people know about our people and our tribes on a state level within the state of Idaho curriculum.
Great.
I'm Clifford James. I'm Jessica's husband. I own a company, a native company, construction company, to design build. And the goal of this company is to get back to the reservations and build self-sustaining houses for the future of generations of all Native Americans. But then to hopefully to have that go on and be a positive light for the rest of the world.
Great. So why don't we first begin by speaking about maybe the context prior to the San Francisco Bay Area in the 1960s. For those folks who may not know much about Native history or the generations that were relocated during the 1950s, for example. So what was that context like during that time, in particular with your life and kind of your life history that brought you to the San Francisco Bay Area?
Well, we had just gone through the genocidal era, post-genocidal era, and the the laws that were impacting us in terms of denying us our religion, our culture, our ceremonies, our dances. We were also subjected to having the children taken away and put into government and Christian boarding schools. So I was from the generation that was free. Well, kind of free, but I didn't.
So then the last question would be, what words of advice do you have, particularly for the students, many of them who were young people on this campus, about words of advice or words of encouragement that you'd like to offer to those who watch this show?
Well, I think young people can really be empowered. They can empower themselves because learning empowers you. And they have every opportunity to learn as much as they can, empower themselves. And don't wait for someone to tell you how to do it, but just do it and work with each other. Be open to help one another and be united in whatever you're doing, and put aside all the petty differences and just maintain that positive attitude and getting things done. And as young people, we did all of that, to do many things, and they have every ability to do the same thing.
Ginny, do you have words of advice?
Well, other than having the patience to work with other people, and definitely unifying everyone for the greater cause, I think that's important. And there's struggles and hard times, but I think that by believing in each other and being the positive change they want to see, I think that that they can overcome those obstacles.
And just learn to love one another, because to really get something done, you need numbers. You need complete unity of everybody, because what's going on in the world affects everybody. So just the more people you have together, the stronger your fight is, and the more likely it will succeed.
And I'd like to end on that note, on the message of love, and how what we may conceive of love, the idea of solidarity. Because if we learn to love one another and ourselves and the world, then we can work towards solidarity to hopefully change it. So,
Right.
Definitely.
yes. So thank you all for being here.
And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I'm very, very honored to have you on this campus, and just to again know that I'm, as an assistant professor of ethnic studies, that I feel my commitment to build on the legacy that you and others during the late 60s fought for. This vision that I don't know if you imagine how it will materialize 40 years later, but this is testament to someone who's benefited from all of that hard work. And so I think the torch again, right? The next generation, the next generations toward building a new world in which multiple forms of existence and knowledges and people can exist in peaceful and loving ways. So that's it for the episode of Woke in the CV.